Why do you support Donald Trump?
I support Trump because I feel like it's three reasons. I think one, the border. I think he focused a lot on the border. Um, I think I seen a news report that said the border mass crossings have been its lowest since 1950s, and you look at Biden's term, the Democrats, right? Uh, it was one of the highest ever. There was about 8 million people that crossed through the border illegally. Um, so I give him credit for that. Um, the other point was world peace. I think that under Biden, there were a lot of wars that started. Not saying it's his fault, but he also didn't come up with any solutions or try to look for ceasefires. While Trump, in the last 11 months, I think he ended, I think he said 8 wars or he's created ceasefire to
Can
them.
you
But
can you
yeah.
name these 8 wars?
Okay, so the first one was Israel and Iran. He did create a ceasefire to it. Um, you have Israel and Palestine. That's two. I think it was a war in Armenia or something. I don't remember who they were fighting against, but it's a it's an Eastern European country. And then I remember Egypt and Ethiopia had like some problems that he was able to create ceasefire with. Kosovo, I think is a country. Um, I don't have my sources right now, but uh, there were some, and Rwanda and Congo. They had a 40-year war that ended under him as well. So yeah, that's pretty much. And then I think the third one would be the economy. He I think his tariffs focus more on
Hold up.
America first.
Before we
Yeah.
before we talk about that, that's not 8. The first one, maybe we could give to you, but I mean we Iran first, so like that doesn't really count as like us, creating more peace when we first. Like that makes no sense. And then for Israel and Palestine, right? They just broke the ceasefire like literally recently. They just cut half of the aid going into Gaza. Um,
Really?
yeah, Israel just cut half the aid going into Gaza. And then Armenia and Azerbaijan. I mean, he was really laughed at by foreign leaders for saying that he was the reason why that happened.
Mm.
And then I don't know what you brought up specifically with him doing something with Egypt and Ethiopia. That's a new one.
Yeah.
And then Rwanda and the Congo, like that's a claim where he was just trying to get mineral rights. That wasn't where he was actually helping anyone. He didn't like help negotiate peace really. And then none of these are really examples where he negotiated peace. So I mean, I don't think that he's a beggar peace candidate. I mean, for example, I'll give you other reasons to believe that he's not. He bought a like 4 different boats of people off of Venezuela, where there was no evidence that they were boats. They were in international waters, meaning not in our jurisdiction, right? Along with the
Wait.
fact that it was a violation of not only international law but also U.S. law. And like, if they were actually guilty, like we should have just detained them within U.S. waters, rather than like striking their boat.
So for the Venezuelan boats, do you have do you have proof that they did not have evidence, or do they
There was no
trust
there
it
was no
publicly?
listed evidence, no proof of evidence that was listed.
But you know how I think Pete Hegseth said that he's no longer providing like top information about like some of the military stuff like that. So I'm not sure, like, is he supposed to share that information?
Yeah, they're supposed to show us the evidence. Yeah, there was no evidence.
Mm, okay, I mean, well, if they did it, I'll put trust uh that they had a reason to, because I know for what's his name, Obama, um he's done the same thing with Iraq when like I think he uh a civilian, a US civilian, a US citizen. So not sure, we
They
don't
they
have.
provided evidence they were affiliated with. I don't know why we're going all the way back to Obama. I definitely don't agree with every drug under Obama. But I'm giving you an example explicitly how Donald Trump is not pro peace, and this isn't even an example of war.
Mm. Uh, I mean, I think he's more of just like I don't know, because under Biden, okay, so let's say Kamala had won the election, right? She pretty much, like their stance was, like for example, Russia and Ukraine. Her stance was, we're fully supporting Ukraine. We're gonna send them billions of dollars. We're gonna go into war if they go into war, type of mentality. While Trump was more of, let's try to hear the other side a little bit more. I'm not saying that Russia, what they did was correct or anything like that, but I feel like,
Trump became full pro Ukraine now. He cut the funding for Ukraine originally, which gave Russia the greater ability to take more land. And then now he's realized, he admitted this himself on his own Truth Social, that he had the wrong position and that they can take back the entirety of Ukraine in its original form prior to being invaded in the first place. So actually a full pro-Ukraine position, and we'd actually be in a better position to defend Ukraine if Trump never cut the funding in the very first place, thinking that he could get a deal done with Putin, who was clearly just conning them.
so what about, yeah, but wasn't Biden threatening to attack Russia if like, or no, like have like, I think it was planes or something in Russian like territory or something like that? Wouldn't that have started World War III?
Which ones? Sorry, restate that.
I think he threatened to have planes sent um over, I think it was Russian territory, that would have been able to start World War III. I don't know, but like I heard
No,
reports of that.
Biden was not advocating for World War III. He didn't do anything that would have caused World War III.
Okay. Um yeah, so I mean, personally, uh I don't think Kamala Harris, if she had been president today, I mean, look at, for example, Afghanistan. Why did they pull out the troops?
That was Trump's deal with the.
But it wasn't it. Weren't they in a process to like peacefully or something like that? I don't know, but
Yeah, that was the process. Yeah, that was, it was set up by Trump, and then it was extended by Biden, giving them a bit more time.
okay, okay, all right. I mean, like I said, it's hypotheticals at the end of the day. If Kamala Harris had won the election, we don't know if any of these countries would
What
have still been
policies of
fighting
Trump's
around.
do you like? Could you name like an economic policy of Donald Trump's that he influenced to get passed that you like?
Yeah, I kind of like his manufacturing. I mean, his tax cuts. I like that as well. I like his tax cuts.
So did you know
The one
these
he
were?
signed in July 4.
Did you know he's replacing income tax with tariffs? So he's decreasing income tax, and he's replacing that with an increased tariff. And tariffs are regressive tax rates, whereas income taxes are progressive tax structures. So it's shifting the burden of taxation from those that are disproportionately higher income in terms of who's paying for it to people who are disproportionately lower income. And I'll explain the process. Progressive tax structure, the more you make, the greater percentage you pay, as is a bracket structure, right? In comparison to tariffs. Tariffs, right, cause an increase in the cost of consumer products. When they cause an increase in the cost of consumer products, right, it causes what's it called? Uh, a greater increase in the prices for people who are buying goods, right? Which, if people are lower income, they spend a disproportionately higher amount of their income on consumer goods, as it's a basis of their cost of living. Meaning that if consumer goods increase in cost, it's going to disproportionately cause their products that they buy to increase in cost, then disproportionately increasing the amount of revenue that's gained specifically from lower income individuals comparative to higher income individuals. Because the higher income you get, the lower percentage of your income you spend on consumer goods.
So are you suggesting that there's no benefits in tariffs?
I'm saying that tariffs are negatively impacting the American population. There are some targeted tariffs that can have beneficial outcomes, like to specialized industries for specialized manufacturing in the United States. But the broad scale tariffs that Trump's advocated for are not only detrimental to American consumer markets, but also to American exporting businesses that rely on exporting their products around the world, like farmers that rely on exporting their soybeans, especially to China, for example, which they're buying none of now because of Trump.
Okay. I mean, I kind of see your point. Like, there's pros and cons to it, but I feel like, for example, with Trump's tariffs, right? Like, I think it was the manufacturing or whatever. Um, you had manufacturing like you had auto factories or whatever in Mexico by China, and they're creating these cheaper cars and they're sending them over across the border, which is hurting American businesses and it's also hurting American jobs. And I feel like the tariffs that Trump put in um, have created more jobs. Is that correct?
No. Domestic manufacturing investment has declined since Trump got in office.
Mm, what about the steel company?
If you're talking about steel, steel was kept by Biden.
Okay, I mean, okay, and then like other economic, I think he's more like less. He's less for the climate, and he's more about Joe Moore, right?
Yeah, that's bad because climate change is real.
Mm. I mean, I don't. Me personally, I feel like climate change is like if you okay. So for example, India and Pakistan, India, like South Asia. When you look at South Asia, the amount of pollution that they commit. For example, China. You look at Russia. These aren't countries that are following climate policies, right?
They actually are now. China specifically has indicated that they're making reductions.
Yeah, because of all the pollution that has rambled all over their
So
city.
now they are doing that. So you have to acknowledge that like we want to address this.
Hmm. I mean, I guess yeah, but like I said, I think that
Okay, so having the president deny science and say the climate's going to start cooling and that science just doesn't know it yet is actively dismantling our ability to be able to address climate change, being able to address health crises that affect our population, and to make America healthy.
okay, what about for example RFK Jr. I think his health secretary.
Yeah,
He
he's insane. He's bad crazy.
didn't he get rid of like toxins that they found in baby formula? Wasn't he the one that found out about that where they had like cancerous ingredients in them, and it was under the Trump administration that they were able to get rid of that recently?
And what?
Under the Trump administration, they
No,
were able
no,
to get rid
cancerous
of
ingredients in what?
in baby formula
Let me look this up.
under RFK Jr.
He just ordered a review of the baby formula. That's it.
I saw a report that said, do you want me to give the source to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
They're just they're all they're doing is increased testing.
I mean, like, I saw a report that said they found and they ordered the companies to redistribute them, but
And actually, in other ways, they actually have decreased the amount of testing because things like, for example, PFAS, they've actually decreased the amount of enforcement for the laws relating to the control of PFAS.
mm,
So they claimed that they are actually like doing stuff to address it to a greater standpoint, but then actively have defunded the FDA inspections.
mm. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'll definitely research into that. But what about? Well, I mean, I still think the border issue is greater than any of the other issues that I'm like more focused on.
In
Um,
what ways he's specifically like addressing that? Because I do want to address this real quick. I do have a source specifically, all right,
mhm.
where Donald Trump's administration eliminated two critical food safety committees. And experts specifically warn the risk of this. You can find this on an article. Look up experts warn of public health risks as the Trump administration eliminates two critical food safety committees.
Okay. I'll highlight that down. But what about? I heard that under Biden, the inflation was 9%, and currently, if you look at the market, the inflation rate is about like 3%, and
So,
that was in 2022.
so with inflation, inflation happened on a global stage under the Biden-Harris administration in Africa, Asia, South America, Central America, Europe, all around the world. It wasn't specific to the United States. That was related to supply chain issues relating to the pandemic. That was not specific to the United States. The Biden-Harris administration did not cause inflation. Now, there are actually arguments the Trump administration has caused inflation because tariffs put upward pressure on prices. So Donald Trump claimed he was going to reduce prices while simultaneously running on policies that increase prices. And
So
since
are
he's
you sug-
implemented tariffs in April, prices have increased. Inflation's gone from 2.3% to 2.9% on an estimated increase to 3.1% and continuing to rise.
Okay, I mean, so are you suggesting that 2022? I mean, but 2022, how does that affect the, like? Isn't that like 2 years after the pandemic?
So the pandemic was still kind of going on. There's Alpha, Delta, and Omicron. So it was still continuing at that point. Like I was still doing lives. I'm pretty sure in 2022 talking about COVID.
Okay.
Like I was talking about it in COVID. I remember in 2022. It was like getting near the end, but it was like there's still like waves and stuff. Now
Yeah.
that it still impacted the supply chains, and the supply chains have to recover. And until the supply chains recover, we're going to see inflation.
Okay. Okay. And for example, what is your issue with deportations when uh, Obama, for example, deported more people than Trump has in his two
Yeah, that's in
terms?
8 years, and Trump has had less time to do that. Now, if you want to talk about the amount of deportation specifically, I definitely do disagree with Obama deporting anyone who had not committed violent crime or bad crime. I think that anyone who's in the country undocumented who hasn't committed violent crime or bad crime should be given a pathway to citizenship. But I do understand that Obama's administration used a greater level of due process.
Okay, so when you say has not committed a crime, is crossing the border not a crime?
Violent crime, it's not a bad crime. It's not a violent crime or a crime that's so bad that someone should be deported. Like think about it this way: like, you jaywalking is a crime, right? You on
Hmm.
TikTok right now, you're on an illegal app, an app that's currently illegal, just not being enforced by the Trump administration to be banned.
Mm. I mean, okay, so I mean, but that's the severity of that is very different. I mean, you can
The
look at,
severity. Well, what's the severity of people coming to the country undocumented if they haven't committed a violent crime or bad crime?
okay, so if 8 million people, let's say 200 million people crossed into the border, right? That causes huge problems to the economy. And I understand you'll say that,
No
oh,
one's
the
advocating
GDP.
for 200 million people. That would be an increase in
o-
our population size by over two times,
Okay,
or
so
by over
but
fifty
still
percent. I
eight.
mean,
Okay, but still 8 million people. If you look at like 8 million people crossing to the border, you're gonna have. Okay, so for example, during the Biden administration, if you, I live in New York, right? And if you look at the amount of hotels that like they were in, the amount of people that were like in the area, you had
those are
hospitals
legal asylum
overrun.
seekers, and that's state policy.
That was
Like,
legal under Biden.
it was state policy, not federal policy, and that's legal asylum seekers going through a legal process of immigration.
Did they not cross through the border illegally?
No,
Well, did they not?
no,
Well,
they're
they're
asylum
undocumented,
seekers.
correct?
They're
Okay,
legal
so
asylum seekers.
yeah, but how did? Okay, can you explain the process of how they became legal asylum seekers? Like, would they have been able to become legal asylum seekers under Trump the before Biden's term?
I mean, does that change anything? And also, I mean, yes, like they would have been able to get into the country, and so long as that there was not remain in Mexico, else they would have waited specifically in Mexico. But I think remain in Mexico gets rid of the basis of the asylum process because for people who are seeking asylum from Mexico, it is the case that they seriously would have to stay in the country that they're seeking asylum from in order to be able to get to our country, which defeats the entire process of asylum. And if you say that they're allowed to come into our country, well, then anyone who has an invalid claim of asylum can claim that they're coming from Mexico, and since they have an invalid claim of asylum, it doesn't matter, right? Like that doesn't have to be
Okay, so
verified quite yet. So you want to incentivize the process to go significantly quicker for people who are already in the country, which will disincentivize people to come to the country through the asylum process if they do not have a legitimate basis for asylum. And
okay,
Trump
so
also like uniquely went after more people for asylum. Like Trump denied a significantly greater percentage of asylum claims than what existed historically.
okay. I mean, me personally, I think that I understand. Like, if I was in, I look at people from their perspective as well, and if I was in their perspective, their shoes, I would also try to cross through the border, become an asylum seeker, just to escape that hard life. But I feel like when you say 8 million people illegally, right? These aren't the legal asylum seekers. Illegally cross through that border. Nobody checked up on them. Uh, you have a strain on, like, for example, public services. So for example, schools, hospitals, they're being overflown, and housing as well is gonna, like, there are issues with that. You do see that, right?
Yeah, the best way to address that is to provide a quicker legal pathway to citizenship and also provide a pathway to citizenship for those that are already in the country and documented, where they do not have to leave the country because that will actually incentivize them to go through the process of being vetted.